there, I'm Sarah Kolis. Welcome to the Dressing Up podcast, where we talk about all things bridal dresses and general dressing up topics. I love to encourage women to dress up while expressing their personal style with confidence on how to do so. Visit sarahkolis.com to book a bridal alterations fitting, or even inquire about designing the custom couture bridal gown of your dreams. I am so excited to talk to you about this next topic. Let's get started. Yay! We have Erica with us here today with Farmstead Vintage. I am so excited to have this conversation with you. Erica, how are you doing? And then can you also give us a little bit of an intro about who you are and what you do?
I can. Hi, Sarah. I'm so happy to be with you today. I am Erica Cesarz. I run Farmstead Vintage clothing emporium. I don't know what we would call it.
Yeah.
I am originally from Toledo. I was born and raised in Toledo, and then I went to Eastern Michigan for school. I was a music therapy and vocal performance major and got my degrees as such. And then I interned and worked in Detroit Public Schools for my first set of years in the autistic spectrum department. And I worked citywide, so I would go from school to school. So I got to know Detroit really well. When I got pregnant with Coco, who is 17, I was driving from the Metro Ann Arbor area into Detroit every day, and I was kind of done. So I took my first hospice job, and that's where my heart landed, doing hospice and palliative care music therapy. And I got my extra certifications in that. And I just had my 20th year as a music therapist. However, when COVID hit, everything kind of shut down, and we weren't seeing patients, and people started to be let go, and I had 3 children homeschooling, and I'd always sold vintage on the side, both on Etsy. This is my, I think 13th year on Etsy, and
Oh, wow.
this is our 10th year for the Ferndale Vintage Fashion Market. So I just decided to amp it up and kind of went all in, and I haven't gone back to clinical work yet. I had 2 surprise children. Coco's 17. We had a lot of years that we couldn't get pregnant. Iggy and Wanda were totally surprises. We call them the littles. So right now, it feels like the important thing is to be with them as much as I can and not working full-time somewhere. And this is a job that both brings me income, and we do it as a family. And that's exceedingly important to me, I think. Like, being together and being with them all the time as much as I can is the number one thing. So that's where we are. Life is sweet right now.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm feeling a little nostalgic because we're on the precipice of Coco. She'll be a senior this year, so I'll have 1 going to college. I'll still have 2 in grade school, but 1 leaving. I'm really just trying to cram in all of the mama family nesting vacations, beach things. Like, I feel like this is my last real summer. Next summer, she's probably going to have things she wants to do. So
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Well, it's so cool you found a passion that can give you some income while still being with your family, and it's just wins all around. So congrats to that.
thank you.
Awesome. Well, I met Erica at the Ferndale Vintage Fashion Market many years ago, and I see her religiously twice a year to get a lot of my clothes, in which I wear a lot of secondhand and vintage clothing. You might recognize the sweater that I'm wearing is from Erica. So yeah, I just really wanted to have this conversation with you and kind of pick your brain on buying vintage, selling vintage, what it's all like. So I was thinking of maybe what we could do to start is just for our listeners that don't know much about buying vintage and secondhand, kind of telling us the pros and cons of buying clothes that way.
That sounds wonderful. So the pros are that I think the estimate right now was that there are enough quality pieces of clothing on this earth right now to clothe the next like 3 to 6 generations. Like, the clothes are here. And I'm not talking just the crappy clothes. I'd like to talk about thrift stores in a minute because it's intimidating for some people, but there are enough quality clothes made of quality fabrics, linen, cotton, silk, wool, things that will last in your closet for generations already here. We got them. So whether that means sourcing those at a thrift store, at a secondhand or resale store, or at a vintage store or at a market or on Etsy or eBay. Those pieces exist. You don't have to go to Target or fast fashion or TJ Maxx. Not that that's bad, because believe me, I also do that. And I have children and we all do that. But if you can pad that with buying vintage items, we are saving massive amounts of clothing waste. I think the estimate is that 90% of things that are donated to Goodwill end up on freight overseas, in either in our landfills or in another country's landfills. I mean, there's a few in
Whoa.
particular that are getting a lot of traction right now on social media, because third world countries don't want they don't want our Shein clothing. They don't want our Temu clothing. They don't want it's garbage to them. And then they're having to incinerate it, or it's just filling their beaches and their landfills. Fast fashion is a very intense problem right now. So the biggest pro is that this is one of the best things we can do as individuals to help the environment. Recycle, don't drive as much, all that stuff. But this is a huge impact. Like the amount of water that it takes to make one pair of blue jeans. Like we got plenty of blue jeans. So that would be my biggest pro. And you're also finding one of a kind, beautiful pieces like that not everyone else is wearing right now. I guess the con would be it's not easy for everyone. It's not easy to know your measurements, know your size, and it's not always easy to style things. So, especially leading up to the vintage market, I try to do some style ideas, some styling ideas. Like my passion is wearable separates or one pieces that can go into your closet and mix with your wardrobe in quality materials, if that makes sense. I'll get a polyester now and again, but it has to be, my rule is it has to be a very good print.
Yeah.
And it
Has
has
to be
to
worth it.
yes, worth it and very relevant. I like the way quality things feel on my skin.
Me
Yes.
too. I
Yes.
mean, especially hearing you talk, it's like we're very similar in that way. I try to also buy natural fibers, buy secondhand, thrift, vintage as much as I possibly can. However, I will indulge every now and then with a new purchase. But actually, I've been trying to see how long I could go without buying something new. And the last time I bought something brand new was February. So I'm trying, I know, right? New clothing, I should say. Accessories, I haven't resisted yet, but clothing wise, I'm trying. And I mean new as in like new production, like no one's ever owned it before, but I've bought lots of other vintage and secondhand.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think that's great that if you aren't buying secondhand or vintage or you're not interested in doing that, at least, you know, it's great to buy less. Or if you're interested in buying secondhand, buy a few things secondhand and a few things new, like to just kind of like cut back a little bit, I think would be great for the general public.
I think that's a great start. Start somewhere. Every once in a while, we will venture to the mall when someone needs something mall specific. It's like few and far between, but there's also like pretzels and lemonade. So it's like, yeah, we'll go to the mall.
Yeah.
I will sometimes sit while Coco is doing her thing or walk through like Urban Outfitters and I'm like, I've got that on my rack. I've got that on my rack. I've got that on my rack. Like, so like sometimes I think another good starting place would be to get your inspiration from current TikTokers, Snapchat people, current brands, Anthro or Urban Outfitters or whatever you're into, and then go look for it on Etsy. See if you can find it. That I think that would be another good thing to think about. I'm always thinking, I like this. Can I buy this from a small producer, whether that's an individual maker or a vintage seller? Where can I buy this that my money's not going somewhere corporate or to Amazon, right? I think that's an important part, especially as small business people for you and I. It's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was actually just thinking, I kind of lied when I said February. I think it was March or maybe it was April. I did buy a new pair of pants that weren't secondhand, but I bought it from a small maker in New York City. Small business made of silk fabrics. It was like, it checked all these boxes for me and it was made in New York City. So that was great. There's other ways of shopping slightly more sustainably by buying new. And then how do you choose the pieces that you do? So when I go to the vintage market and I go to your booth, it's just like pulling stuff off the rack. Everything you're selling, I'm like, I like a lot of this. So how do you choose and curate your collection of pieces?
Well, let's start with where I source. I like to keep my price point reasonable, especially for Ferndale. My motto is like I feel like people will buy more of what they want from you if they're not having sticker shock and it feels reasonable and a comfortable place for them. So for me, that means thrift stores, garage sales, estate sales, flea markets, rummage sales. I'm not scared to shop anywhere. I'm not scared to go in anywhere. Kind of the grittier the better. Like I'm all in. I know that's not for everyone, but this is important too because I see a lot of influencers saying, "Oh, I went thrift shopping," and then they do a piece of going to a curated vintage store. And the difference there is that the vintage sellers are doing the legwork. I'm going to, say, a thrift store, and I know what materials, patterns, fabrics I'm looking for. I'm very fast. I can go through, I can pull things, I'm fast. My husband sometimes will be on the other side. I'll say, just go do menswear for me. And he'll come with a pile, and God love him. He's like, but I'll go back there and pull like 4 things right away. Like I know what I'm looking for. But then I take all that, I launder it, I inspect it, I mend it, I style it, I put it in a collection that makes sense so that when you come to the market, you feel like I'm just going boom, boom, boom and pulling these pieces. I mean, the most joyful time for me is I collect for the 6 months in between each market. And then when it's like a month out, I put all of my racks up in my bedroom. I have a farmhouse and my bedroom's this weird big addition. So put all my racks up. And when everything goes in their color zone, like it feels so joyful and good, and it all makes sense in my brain. It's a collection. I'm curating a collection that it will be relevant for the next season. And then when beautiful people come and buy all that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, like I was right. And that feels so awesome. And these pieces are getting new homes and they're not going in a dump somewhere and they're going to be worn. What I'm sourcing definitely has changed throughout the years. I don't do as much like traditional like 40s, 50s dresses, like vintagey stuff. The gender neutral section of my market space has grown from like a teeny rack to a giant rack to like 2 racks this time. And that's been really fun. There used to be like this tiny men's section like 10 years ago, but now there's just all this gender fluid clothing that is amazing, and it can be masculine and feminine or neither or both. And so currently I've been having a lot of fun with that. I love old workwear, old hunting gear. We travel all over the state. My kids are great car kids. We're in between Ann Arbor and Lansing. So we're 2 hours from Lake Michigan. We're 2 hours from Lake Huron. We just went through the UP last week through Lake Superior for a week. And I love to be on water. And I also love to stop at every thrift store on the way. But in the place that we live in, these beautiful little small Michigan towns, you find so much good stuff. So this is a rewarding place to live and work.
Do you find there's a lot more of what you're looking for the further north you go?
Yes, I
Less
do.
picked through, maybe?
Yeah, I don't like go to Metro Detroit anymore. Well, 2 things are happening. A lot of people are thrifting and sourcing and reselling right now, which is awesome. Like there's enough for everybody. There's plenty. And the prices have also really increased. So where I've had to adjust my thinking, where I'm comfortable spending a little more even at thrift stores than I used to be. And if I've got to, up my price by a couple bucks because of that, okay, because I still want to get these quality pieces. But there are thrift stores that have standard prices, and then there are thrift stores where each individual piece of clothing is priced. And for my business model, it's important to get a mix of all that, so my pricing can stay in a good range.
Gotcha.
Sometimes I can get a fill a bag for $1. Like, like it's a balance. And then sometimes I might go out and pay $40 for a dress that I love and just want to have in my collection. So, and then it all equals out in the end.
Wow. It sounds like, you've been doing this for a while. So you have developed a method and a process, and a creative eye for what works for you. And I love how you said you are curating a collection, because that's really cool. You're bringing in a lot of artistic vision into what you're pulling and finding and selling. So it's really cool. I'm hoping our listeners are hearing that there's a lot more that goes into this than one might think. I didn't even think about all of these things that you're saying. So it's very enlightening. Yeah. So I think maybe we already touched on this, but I did have a question written down about if you ever sell designer pieces, because I do see a lot of vintage shops that have like a section of vintage designer bags or designer gowns, or does Farmstead Vintage try to stay away from those, or do you do a couple of them? What's that like?
That I stay away from them. I think I just don't come across them as much.
Yeah.
I mean, every once in a while you find something great, but I think I find more accessories that would be considered high-end or designer than I do clothing pieces. I don't generally do home buying appointments, which I feel like a lot of people find good designer pieces within those, just because it's not my price point. It's a little like it's a little bit higher than I can spend to make my money. So, not that I stay away from them, I just generally don't find them. And when I do, it's super, super exciting when you
Yeah.
find one in the wild, because they are still, or at an estate sale where all the clothing's $1 and you're like, oh my God, and you're just, grabbing as much as you can. But yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of figured that at other shops I've looked at. I'm like, there has to be something where, I mean, you're not going to find this at Salvation Army.
Right.
Like, yeah, that makes sense.
But also, there are vintage sellers in my community that can sell things. We can all sell things differently. We can all sell things at different price points. I might have something for years and it just doesn't sell for me. And somebody buys it, another seller buys it as Rust Belt, and they're like, I'm going to sell this. And I'm like, please, like, for whatever reason, that won't sell for me, but maybe it will for you. I mean, I have things that I see other sellers listing for so much more money, but they have a different clientele audience, Instagram following, Etsy following, and they can get that price for it and in a different way than I can. And that's fine. There's room for all of us in the game. And there's a market for all of us, because not everybody can pay the prices of some of the bigger sellers on Etsy. And I think that the Rust Belt market is a great place to come and get things at a really decent price point and to be able to try things on, which is intimidating for a lot of people buying things sight unseen.
Yeah. I love Etsy. I will buy something on there every now and then, but if I can buy it in person, I personally very much prefer that. But now I feel like I'm promoting the vintage market and I'm like, I don't want to. Now I'm going to be competing with a lot more people.
Yeah, I've been on Etsy for 12 or 13 years. I generally don't do new postings in the summer between markets. It feels like such a shorter time from the spring to the fall market. So I'm just sourcing, and it's summer. I've got 3 kids home, so I'm doing all the summer things, and I have a farm, and I'm just gardening and enjoying life with my kids. And I've just set that rule for myself. I will take everything for the fall market, and then after that, I go through and say, okay, this is what I'm going to list on Etsy. This is what I'm going to put away for the spring. This is just timed out and I'm done with it. Let's move it on and see if somebody else can do something with it. And then during the fall and winter months, I do a lot more listing. I do all my housewares on Etsy as well. So like, I love sourcing vintage home things. A lot of it ends up in my farmhouse, but a lot of it ends up on Etsy. Maybe 3 years ago, I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go with my business, and I just allowed myself to try selling big furniture. So I signed up for like every market for a season where I could haul all this stuff and set up my tables and my chairs and my home goods, and it was just like, it was so much fun for me, Sarah, and so enriching, but the business model just
Didn't work. It was just a hobby.
it was so much work, and
Yeah.
it was so much work, and then all this stuff, and you might sell a little, but like, it's another reason why the Rust Belt market is such a good business model, because it's a 3-day event. So you're setting up once and you've got 3 days to just sell stuff. One year I just did a bunch of 1-day markets, and sometimes you had a great day and sometimes you made your booth fee and sometimes it poured, and but I'm glad I tried it all, and I learned, like, now I just kind of know what works for me and what fits in with my family life too. So it's been a learning journey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Could you enlighten us on some of the myths of buying secondhand vintage thrifted clothing? I can come up with two, and maybe you can talk about those and see if there's others, like other comments that you get from people. One would be price, just that the price point is often not what you think it might be. And then also, you already touched on this a little bit, but that buying from Salvation Army, Goodwill, or buying from you, there's a cleanliness difference that people, I think I've gotten comments before that people think that buying secondhand in any way is kind of gross. I personally don't think so. You can wash.
Thank you. I am a very good laundress. I come from a line of Polish grandmothers. My grandmother ironed my grandpa's hankies and boxer shorts, and my family just is good at laundry. Like, I have sister-in-laws who don't have irons or ironing boards. I love you, sisters,
My
but I
goodness.
have my iron up like in my bedroom. Then I just put it in my closet, then it's back out. Like,
I bet
so
that's with a lot of people. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I have this one steamer that I'm like, everybody should own a steamer.
right. Yes.
Everyone should own like a solid steamer. It's good to have.
I too agree. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I wash everything, and when I'm packaging up things for in-person markets and handing it to them, and I always say like freshly laundered, ready to wear, and I'm shocked at how many people say, really? Like, what do you think I'm selling? Like, of course it is. This has been cleaned, examined, ironed. If this doesn't smell at least neutral, I'm very careful with, I do like an organic fabric softener because we have hard water, but I'm very careful with scents even. I don't want this to smell like fabric softener. I want this to just be a neutral, clean piece of clothing for you. I went to an estate sale while we were on vacation in Duluth last week, and I was nose blind in the house and grabbed a ton of things. And then when I got them home, realized how bad they smelled like smoke. So I have a current like laundry game going on right now. I have things sunning and hanging and washing repeatedly, but it is a part of it. However, I mean, if you are weirded out by being in a thrift store, yes, know that you can wash or dry clean any of that, but you're paying a little bit higher price from a vintage store because the vintage seller has done that for you. They've made sure that it's in good wearable condition and it's not going to fall apart after. If it doesn't make it through one wash for me, it's not going to make it through a wash for you. So I need to make sure that I can at least tell you, I washed this, I hung it to dry, it came out perfect, or I washed it and threw it in the dryer. That's all you have to do. This is great. I feel good about saying that and them knowing that they're buying something that they're going to wear more than once. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Do you have a general tip for washing? Like, is there anything that you can think of that you see people making mistakes on as far as laundry goes?
No, I'm kind of old school. I have a whites pile. I put a scoop of OxyClean in with my whites because I have hard water. I don't do bleach. Like a little OxyClean and the oxygenator works because we have a well. I have a lights pile and I have a darks pile. That's how my kids know to sort their laundry. I do think that colors get murky and bleed, and I feel that fabric softener plays an important role in laundry. I can't, sometimes I will buy a piece from a thrift store and it's the fabric softener smell that I can't get out. Like, I cannot get that out of the piece of clothing because it smells like whatever, Downy Unstoppables, like so intensely. But fabric softener does tighten your fibers. It makes your clothing last longer, and the fabric itself stay taut, color fast. It really does make a difference in clothing. So I recommend using a fabric softener, and I use organic dryer sheets as well. I hang a lot of things up. That would be my other tip.
Me too.
I have
Almost
dry
everything.
racks everywhere. I have clothing on the line all summer. My husband and my eldest love a rough towel that just came off the clothesline.
Oh,
I like them in the dryer, but we always have a stack of both, kind of.
gosh, you have separated out. I love it. Oh, it's funny. Any other myths you can think of?
I think people are just weirded out by thrift stores in general. Like my family, my mom and my sister will, but it's not my mom's jam. It's just not everybody's jam, right? Like, it's a little bit of an intimidating space. Like, you kind of don't know where to start or what
It's a
to do.
hunt.
the hunt. And that's the passion for me. Like I
Yeah.
love going in there and picking the 3 things that are completely relevant in the current style setting, like I love it. And that's a lot of times I might only find 1 or 2 or 3 things. It's a gift if I like have a cart full. And my husband, I'm always a little more cautious than I probably should be. And God love my husband. He's always like, no, if you find it, buy it. It might not be there next time. So when you find it, buy it. I don't care if you put it away for 3 seasons, but you know what will be relevant at some point. And if it's a quality piece, buy it. So I don't second guess myself anymore. That's something I've had to learn. My
Yeah.
gut's really right. So if it's there, just get it. Think about it later, but if but
Yeah.
it's not just, I guess it's not all crap at the thrift stores is important for people to know. Like I find Anthropology almost every time I'm at a thrift store, like Free People brands. People donate insane things. And thrift stores just don't quite have it down yet. They'll have something priced crazy at the behind the register, but then have a bunch of super quality clothing just out on the rack. So like don't feel like thrift stores have everything priced too high. Like a lot of it's just out on the rack still. And you can find most of the brands you're shopping at the mall because the teenagers have already given it back to the thrift store. Like it's just this constant cycle.
I'm
Yeah.
quite sure that I have bought things from a thrift store, wore it for a couple years, and then donated it back to the same thrift store. Just like
Yeah.
recycling through.
Totally.
On that note, how do you recommend people donate their clothes when they're done with them?
Mm. This is hard. I don't think there is a wrong or an easy solution right now. I donate back to Goodwill.
Yeah.
I am cautious. I don't give them crap. If a garment I have children, so sometimes garments have just worn out their welcome and are just stained and gross and are done. I will throw things away because I feel like at least I'm saving that step. The thrift store, an employee doesn't have to go through this and do it. I mean, they don't put everything out. They put things in their dumpster if they're supposed to put anything stained or ripped, torn, damaged in the dumpster. So
Yeah, it's going to end up there anyway.
gonna end up there anyway. So at least save that step for people. I'd recommend this is a slow process, but starting from the beginning and buying pieces that you can see yourself wearing for multiple seasons. And I would encourage people too if your things are nice and have life, throw it on eBay, see what happens. I mean, I sometimes post modern things on eBay. Often modern things that I'm sourcing are for myself, my family, or my teenager. But once in a while, I find something really good that can't go on Etsy, and I will put it on eBay. And I mean, eBay is still a huge market, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I forget about it sometimes, but sometimes I'll want something like a dress from somewhere and I'll see if anybody's selling it on eBay first because I'd rather pay someone for something that's like new or
Yeah.
with
Good
tags,
point.
right? So
Good
I
point.
always check all options. I know a lot of people also do Poshmark, Depop. There's all of these modern secondhand selling sites right now too, which are
Yeah.
super popular.
That you can do yourself without having to be a vendor. You can just do it on your
100%.
own.
Yes.
A couple things on the donating too. So what I do when I do donate my clothes, I gather up my 3 sisters and say, you want anything out of this pile? Gather up your friends, gather up your sisters, and we do trades all the time. Like, or they'll come over and be like, I'm about to get rid of this shirt. Do you want it? And I'm like, I'll wear it for a few months. And then I'll toss it after that to the thrift stores. Another thing is I started my secondhand vintage shopping journey several years ago. I think it kind of started at the vintage market. So like you had a huge influence on me. But what I have actually found is now that I'm several years in, I've been quite more aggressive with it like the past year or two. And what I'm finding is I actually get rid of my clothes a lot less too, because I'm not buying as many. I'm not getting rid of them as often. And I'm noticing I love everything in my closet. Everything is like so specifically picked out, and I only buy things when I really, really love them. So everything in my closet, I just like love every piece, and they're all quality pieces. So I love my closet so much more now than I did when it was all fast fashion years ago.
That's
Just
amazing.
interesting.
I haven't been to a good clothing swap in a number of years, but I had a certain group of girlfriends where we did that a lot. Bethany at Rewear Vintage hosts one periodically. I know in her store does a clothing swap.
Where's she at?
I think she's in Berkeley.
Oh, okay, cool.
Rewear. She also sets up at the Rust Belt for the vintage show.
Oh, okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I too feel like the impulse buys from TJ Maxx or Target cycle through your closet so much faster than the things that you just are thoughtful about. You might sleep on it, make a decision, and buy a quality piece,
Yeah. And they wash better. So I would buy just regular t-shirts at Target all the time. And it's like, after you wash it twice, it's like, I don't really like this anymore. I'll still wear it for a while, but I don't love it like I did when I first bought it. So it's just good to buy quality pieces that will last a long time.
Agreed.
Very good. Well, anything else we want to talk about or touch on?
No, I think we hit my list. I wrote really big closet staples on my list, and I think that's something that I'm always trying to stock my racks with for both Rust Belt and Etsy. Just closet staple pieces, separates, dresses that you can wear in a variety of ways, and you can see yourself styling in a variety of ways. This is all going towards developing your sustainable closet, right? Like you say, pieces that you love and you reach for all the time. They don't always have to be wow pieces. Like make sure you have a good white blouse, a good silk blouse, a good, XYZ, a good pair of black pants, like just XYZ, like check them off your list. A good black blazer that you can wear for date night or for a funeral or, like you just need, it's like,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Erica. And I'll see you in person at the fall market.
Can't wait. Third weekend in September.
I know, as soon as the dates come out, I always like jot it down in my calendar like that second. So I'm like, I gotta make sure I'm available.
It's either perfect or it's 106 degrees. There's kind of like there's no in between with that market, but fingers crossed for lovely weather. And I will be transversing the beautiful state of Michigan for the rest of the summer, finding new pieces and even going to Canada in a couple weeks for my family vacation. So I don't think I've ever thrifted in Canada. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Wow, that's exciting. Yay. Well, I am so happy to talk to you and learn more about your thriving business. And I just had so much fun. So thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode has allowed you to approach the world with greater confidence in your own personal style. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out through email or inquiry form on the website. I hope you are all ready to go and get dressed up. I look forward to sharing more dressing up tips with you in future episodes. See you there.